compete with banks, but it gives me a great honor to introduce you to François Derbaix from Be Water. He will be moderating the panel this afternoon, and he'll be introducing each of the panelists. François.
Is the sound okay? Do you listen right over there at the end? Okay. Well, thank you, Paris. We're starting the Fintech round. We have with us Philippe Gelis from KANTOX. Wait. KANTOX is a startup of currency exchange between companies. It's a peer-to-peer between companies. We have Andrés Bernad from ACCENTURE. He's a specialized consultant in online payments and mobile payments. We have with us Paul Navarro from Banco SABADELL, specialized as well on digital business for Bank SABADELL. We have Gonzalo Gonzalo Caselles, sorry, from new means of payments from BBVA.
ING Direct. ING Direct.
ING Direct, sorry. ING Direct. Sorry.
Yeah, not yet. No.
ING will give us a very interesting point of view of how you can start a startup from a very large company. Actually, it will be interesting testimony. And Paul Navarro from BBVA, head of digital transformation and no, sorry, I'm missing. Javier López Chicote from BBVA. Sorry for the confusion. Head of new means of payments, BBVA. We have some controversial questions we'll touch a little later, but I think that to start, maybe we can have a few headlines of why you do think innovation is so important now in the financial sector. Maybe you want to start, or maybe Andrés, about...
Yeah, I could start if you wish. We are living right now in a digital revolution in banking. We believe that this is putting into risk 30% of the revenues for banks. And this brings a huge opportunity, not also for non-banking players, but also for the banks themselves, because they can grow. And here in this space, innovation, we find that innovation is key, right? What's going on? First of all, digital consumers are expecting more from their providers. We can see in this space that they are more informed. They trust on social media and social networks. They trust what others say. They also are not so worried about security, and they are sharing personal information among them. On the other side, we are seeing that technology is a key enabler. We are seeing mobility, cloud. We are also seeing social, interactive as key technologies that could provide innovation in the financial services space. And the third one, key movement that we are seeing is that the relationships between the demand and the supply of the value chain is changing. Basically, the focus right now is not on the sales piece of the value chain, but it's more on the pre-sales and also in the post-sales space of the value chain in the digital environment. So, in this digital value chain, we find that payments is critical, is the key, is at the heart of the ecosystem. And in this case, innovators, they do have the opportunity to extend their reach into this digital payments value chain. For example, something that is doing Moven, maybe you have heard about Moven. It's a digital provider of payment solutions in the US, which is putting payments in context, providing budgeting to the user so they know if they are within the budget to make a specific purchase. And this is provided via mobile apps, for example. And we have another example that could be PayPal, that, as you already know, it's reducing the risk with reducing the need to provide personal confidential information in the online environment, but also it's allowing the user to get discounts, offers, and many other services that enhance the service from the merchant and from the user. So these are two examples in innovation of what's going on and where are key spaces for getting new things to the financial market.
Okay. Andrés is mentioning examples like PayPal. You probably all know the innovation dilemma, which is that the incumbent, the leader in an industry, normally has not too much interest in being part of the innovation because this innovation is going to go directly against the bank business. So the innovation is a risk for the bank business. What experience do you have from the big banks about this kind of... Can the innovation come from a big bank, or shall the innovation always come from a startup or from outside the bank? Maybe we can start with BBVA experience with a wallet.
Yeah. Is running? Yeah, okay. Well, you know that we are talking every day, banks, about mobile payments. But we were talking from a long time ago about how NFC works, how anyone can pay with the mobile. So there is something that BBVA has developed recently that is an application that is called BBVA Wallet. With BBVA Wallet is the first application in Europe that allow any customer to make a payment on any contactless POSs that you can find on any merchant, like this one. So anyone can download the application and start paying everywhere. And to do this kind of innovation, we are working like a startup. I mean, maybe a startup and a bank is not the same thing, but we have a team of 15 people that are working on BBVA Wallet and has developed these kind of things. So I think that innovation and banks is possible. Not always, but sometimes.
Does your business, BBVA Wallet, represent a risk for BBVA? Do you feel there is some resistance inside the bank against this project?
No, for us it's much better because, you know, sometimes when you visit a branch, you have to, first of all, you have to visit a branch in a digital world. So this is something crazy. I mean, I want to become a customer without going to a BBVA branch. So if you can sign up as a new customer and start paying without waiting 1 week or 2 weeks until the real plastic card arrives at home, it's much better than nothing. So it's not a risk, it's an opportunity.
Okay. I would like to ask you, Gonzalo, about the experience at ING Direct in Spain, because I think personally it's the first example I know of a big bank launching a big startup. Actually, ING Direct was built from scratch. Maybe you can give us more details about this experience.
Yeah, talking generally speaking, I think digital transformation nowadays and facing new customer needs obliges big companies as ING Group, for instance, to issue and develop things as using methodology of a startup. The first example is, or the main example we have is ING Direct. It was created from scratch here in Spain with a different model that we have in the Netherlands, using a direct model with a different approach, and using the advantages and the disadvantages and the barriers that a startup has. Of course, for instance, we were really focused, we were tied to market, we were really flexible and agile. Nowadays, ING is no longer a startup, but we still share the same spirit of a startup in our procedures. In fact, for instance, when we have to serve or we have to develop a new product or a new service, what we do is using, for instance, all the methodology of startups like design thinking. And on the other hand, when we involve startups in our procedures, when we don't have in-house knowledge, so what we do is a partnership, or we explore different ways of co-create with startups.
Do you have any specific example of this kind of collaboration?
For instance, the last one that we already launched, which is a joint venture with Pagatelia to serve our customers with BAT. And more of them will come in the near future.
Glad to hear that.
But this is a secret yet.
Yeah. Another approach, I think, is the one from BANC SABADELL, because BANC SABADELL is probably the only bank in Spain having launched its own accelerator for startups. So it's not only that they're developing the product from inside, but they launched the accelerator B startup to select fintech and non-fintech projects and accelerate them from BANC SABADELL. My question there is a little controversial, is how can a big bank, slow moving, I mean usually the big banks are slower moving, be part of an acceleration process? Maybe you can give us more information about the experience.
Okay, does it work, yeah? Okay, thanks, Philippe. I will try to be like the critical guy in the round table, because I think that when you try to combine the words bank and innovation, it doesn't work, because trying to innovate in a big bank, it's not an easy job. I think that really banks are not the most innovative companies. Banks have been probably the most innovative companies using technology to be more efficient, but not really using the opportunity of digital and technology to really transform the business itself. I think that banks in Spain and all over the world have been working during the last years, adding digital as a layer into the relationship space with the customers, but we think that today we are into a new era, so digital is not anymore about adding more features to be able to interact with the customer. And for us, really, innovation is trying to really transform the company into a digital company. So you cannot be a competitor to new businesses that are being launched in internet without really transforming the business itself to be a digital company. So many banks are very advanced on digital capacities, but when you go inside the organization, you are into an analogic company and everything is working on the same way during the last year. So if you compare it with startups, like KANTOX or another examples, these guys have designed the business itself from the digital perspective. So starting from scratch and really understanding that business on digital is something completely different. So for us, trying to be an innovative bank into digital is really trying to change all the organization and really transforming the bank into a digital ADN company where really things happen on digital. So it means people from product, from marketing, from communication, from everywhere needs to change the mindset to another way of doing business. For us, B-Startup is a new way. I think it's a combination. So for us, B-Startup is like a Trojan horse for the company. So it's like putting new things into a company and trying to change the mindset by the friction between new ways of doing things. And from another side, it's a new way to accelerate businesses that we really think that it will be impossible to do it from inside the bank. So things around payments, things around transforming the relationship with the customer, things like how do we change the interaction with money. So it's like a new way to really design products and services, and we think it's not anymore about adding new features, it's like really changing the existing business that we are doing, and for this, the only way for us is opening up to new ways of doing things.
Do you think there is negative selection in the sense of, do you think that your accelerator is going to attract the best projects? Isn't there a risk in a good project to go too close to a bank and to risk being overwhelmed with more paperwork or more obligations? What's the experience with this?
The platform that we have is completely separated from the bank, so we don't try to mesh the bureaucracy of the bank into the accelerator, so things are working different there. And we don't want the startups in that accelerator to only work for the bank, so they are into the system, into the market, and the bank is just helping them speed up, and many times being able to give them the opportunity to test the products faster with new customers.
Okay, okay. And then we have KANTOX. KANTOX is the only startup of the panel. Well, the only pure startup, I would say. It's a project started from scratch, and that is going directly for one piece of the bank businesses. Maybe you can explain a little more.
Yeah, we offer foreign exchange services for businesses. So basically our clients are companies that buy dollars to pay in China or that sell in the UK, so they sell GBP and buy euro. So we are really competing with banks only on foreign exchange services. So it's a small share of their business, but it's an interesting competition.
Do you think you're competing in transparency and in low cost?
Yeah.
So basically, but it's happening in many fintech startups. A fintech startup is reducing the bank cost and offering a cheaper proposition for the customers. Do you think the banks will be able to compete with you in transparency and in lowering the cost? What do you see? Are they adjusting to KANTOX commission?
No, they may adjust in some very specific cases. So for example, when we get a client that's very large, imagine a client that may exchange $50 million a year with us. In that case, they try to get back the client. They usually don't reach it, but they try to compete. But what they cannot do is they cannot do it massively, simply because imagine that they want to reduce the price to really compete with us. This means that they will probably squeeze 90% of their profits on FX. So it's just impossible. It's like saying I have a 100 million revenue, I go down to 10 million. So I have to lay off almost all my team.
Do you want to comment something about how do you think banks should compete with KANTOX on the foreign exchange?
I think it's what I was trying to explain before. So banks are trying to build up the digital business on top of the existing business. So you are building the business on top of the same cost that you had during the last years. So when you are reinventing businesses on digital, you are really changing completely the way you do the business, and it changes the structure of cost and the structure of delivery. So again, if you try to build up your digital business on top of your traditional business, it will not fit, because you need to pay the backs of the cost that your existing business is doing. So again, if you want to really compete with guys like KANTOX, you can do it only adding the digital layer on top of your FX platform. You need to redesign your FX process if you want to be more efficient, if you want to lower the prices and keep your margin.
Okay. What do you think is a main competitor, your main competitor currently? Is it other banks, big digital players like Google, Apple, or Amazon, PayPal, and so on, or specialized startup? What do you think is coming the biggest competition for the banks?
I will answer. Just very quickly. Now, if you look at what customers' behavior, what they use, they are going to show you the pattern. And the pattern is that maybe they are using nowadays, they are using Google, they are using WhatsApp, they are using Facebook, they are using that. So they are the owners of the customers, not the owners, but the owners of the data and the behavior of the customers are those players. So we have to take them into account, because also regulation nowadays is helping them to enter in new business, for instance, in payments. So I think we should have a look at them, because they are looking at customers.
Okay.
I think something that is relevant is that...
wait a minute. The micro, okay.
Something that is relevant is that the interactions in the digital environment are shifting towards non-banking actors. So in this case, or the banks get back to the center of these interactions, of these conversations, in the process of selling or in the process of searching for information or whatever, when looking for financial services, or otherwise they will become providers of what we call dumb accounts, instead of being part of the process. We have interesting examples and linked to the FX business. Something like PayPal is now going to offer to the merchant the ability to pay with Bitcoins. So this is something quite innovative, that you can pay Bitcoins in an online store because the merchant has reached an agreement with PayPal to do so. And this is disintermediating banks completely in the payments value chain. So banks need to get back to these interactions and be innovative to do so.
Okay. I think our vision is that banking and payments is about the ecosystem. So again, the future vision is money, or digital money will be like water. So you will use money everywhere in digital platforms, social platforms, mobile everywhere. And banks only have one option, that it's be open to new ways of managing money into digital. So we think that the way to compete or to collaborate or to really be able to be part of the digital ecosystem when money goes digital is really being open and having an ecosystem that doesn't understand of a specific formats of using this money, and you need to be open to use, be able to your customers to use that money everywhere. So it means that if I'm on Amazon and I'm trying to pay, you need to try to make it easier for your customer to pay with your coins than with Amazon coins. If you make it harder to do it, they will pay with Amazon coins. And today, the reality is that we are making it very difficult and very hard for customers to use their money outside of the bank. So again, it's about, if you want to understand how this ecosystem works, the only way of doing this is changing how do you work on digital and really having an advantage to your customer on the digital ecosystems. Because people will not change the behavior. You need to follow the behavior of your customers.
Okay. And you don't think that those digital players, such as PayPal or Google, will finally shift or move toward your core business as well? So be part of their, build their own ecosystem to...
I think it depends of the value they get of that transaction. So it means if for Amazon is this just a way of doing their business easier and they don't have a solution from third parties, they will build by their own. So if you add value on that transaction for the customer and for them, I don't think they will need to build up their own platform.
Okay.
So it's...
Philippe?
Yeah, I think that we are really in the first wave of fintech, which is, let's say, the basic one, where you have startups focused on verticals like us, or Google, or anyone competing on some verticals. I don't think at all that Google will never try to be a bank, simply because it's a business that's much less profitable and with much slower growth than their own business. So I don't imagine Google with 30% profit trying to be a bank where maybe you will do 15% profit. But I think that what the banking industry is not understanding now is that in 2 or 3 years, we will have the second wave of fintech, and you will have successful people in fintech that will build fintech banks. So now we are almost looking on that, and we are quite convinced that with $20 or $25 million, we can build a fintech bank with a banking license, and we can provide any banking services, digital, much cheaper, quicker, faster than any bank. And I'm quite convinced that in 2 or 3 years, investors will be keen to put $25 million on the table to build a fintech bank from scratch.
Okay.
So I think this is the next wave that most people are still missing.
Okay.
And I think they should prepare for that, more than competing only with KANTOX or with PayPal. They should prepare to compete versus real fintech banks that will really disrupt everything.
Okay. We are going to do a small survey with the public. So there is, if we think about 10 years from now, who will be leading the financial services sector or the banking sector? 3 options. Current leaders, incumbents, so big banks from today. Second option, big digital players like Google, PayPal, or Amazon, or similars. And third option, the new startups, a new venture with 25 million launching a new bank from scratch and commercializing the services. So who thinks the leader will be the current incumbent or large banks? Can you raise the hand? Okay. We have maybe around 10 persons. Who do you think the leader will be among the big online players like Google or PayPal, Amazon? Can you raise a hand? More, I don't see until the end, but a little more, maybe 12 person. And who thinks the leaders tomorrow will be new startups, maybe companies that still don't exist but will start from scratch? If you can raise a hand. Okay, a little less, maybe
It's
6 person.
a very good result because this means that we will have time to build it.
Before they react. Well, the bank is still the best bet, I would say. But
It's normal, meaning it's normal, absolutely.
okay, do you want to add something on this?
Well, I really think that the main competitor of banks are banks. I mean, the main competitors of banks are banks themselves. I mean, we have to put all the focus on customer experience because we are talking about mobile payments, right? Maybe you have noticed about Apple Pay. Apple Pay works exactly as the same way as any other EMV regular plastic card. But the user experience is completely different. As long as you just put your phone in front of the POS, you put the touch ID, your fingerprint in the touch ID, and you pay and you leave, this is customer experience. So if we want to lead the next generation of payments, we have to put all the focus on customer experience. I think this is what we have to do.
Yeah, I agree with Javier. It's something that is relevant and this is key. Apple Pay, obviously, and I believe that is very relevant. The user experience is the key difference in this new way of paying in the mobile phone. What we should also understand is the business model that is behind. It keeps working with cards model, but it gets a part of the issuer fee. So I mean, this is not going to replace or displace a bank, but they are going to get less revenues for this. Why? Because iPhone users will use Apple Pay and part of the benefit will get to Apple Pay. So Apple is not going to make disappear a bank, but they are going part of the cake.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you probably can also look at the other way. Is if you are connecting with an ecosystem that is delivering a better experience that you are able to deliver by your own, you can probably get more value from that ecosystem, not only from the transaction itself, but for the ecosystem. So it means that probably when you are connecting with Apple Pay, you are going to get more usage for the money with your customers. Yeah. So probably you are getting value because you are increasing the interaction of your customers that if you are trying to deliver your own solution.
Absolutely. From my point of view, in the way you do these kind of things, in these interactions in the digital environment, you are promoting pre-sales and post-sales activity that increase consumption. Absolutely. And this will bring more business for both startups, non-bank providers, and banks themselves.
One more question, and then we move to the question from the public. So we're going to move a micro through the public if you want to ask. In the meantime, do you think you can start a startup from a bank or a new startup from Spain, or do you have to move to London or another place? Maybe Philippe, you have some experience on this, and then we can have a quick. Can we start a fintech startup in Spain?
You can, but in here, the banking oligopoly is doing anything they can to stop competition. Public administration has forbidden investors to invest in fintech. ENISA, for example, the ENISA investment, the public ones that they give to any failed startup can never be granted to a fintech company. And there is absolutely no doubt that this is because some people just try to protect the oligopoly. So if you want to start, it's much easier to start in London.
Okay.
Because here public administration and regulators have understood that they need to promote competition from fintech. But anyway, I think it depends what kind of fintech you are. You may start in Spain, but it's harder than starting in London, definitely. And I think it's really a pity because Spain is reasonably good in banking. There are two big leading banks in Spain, but probably in 10 years, London will be the fintech leader simply because they have really helped the ecosystem to grow, and Spain will miss an opportunity, probably.
Yeah. From Javier from BBVA, you're more active in London or in Madrid or Barcelona?
Yeah. Well, BBVA as a global bank has a BBVA Ventures office in San Francisco, so we have invested a lot of millions there, but our doors are really open. I mean, it doesn't matter if the startup is in San Francisco, in Israel, or in Madrid, or any other part of Spain.
Okay.
So at least our doors are open, and we are waiting for really people and startups that really want to innovate, and we want to hear them.
Okay. Questions?
My advice would be only just to add something. Yeah, I think you can start in Spain, and probably the bank with this startup can help you. So there's an ecosystem here. The cost of a startup probably will be lower if you are in Spain for recruiting people and things like this. But if you are very focused on fintech, I will advise to go to London or New York for being on the ecosystem and probably have one or two people there really trying to connect with another people and making business development in a place where really fintech is exploding right now.
Okay. Thank you.
From my point of view, I believe that there's not only there's a space for opportunity in Spain for startups, but also there are the capabilities and the environment to help them to promote their ideas. For example, Accenture has an initiative that is called Accenture Innovation, that basically one of their streams of action is to identify key startups that we take this startup to our conversations with large corporations or banks to find areas in which there could be innovation in the clients. This is something that, from a corporate point of view, we are doing, but we are not the only one large corporate doing that in Spain. There are many, as you have this BS startup initiative, there are many large companies, and there's a space in Spain for innovation and startups.
I'm sure. First question.
Yes, hello. Hi, good afternoon.
Is there a micro over there? Okay, good.
The question is very simple. The publishing industry, the record industry, they all lost around 50% of their revenues in basically 10 years. So the question is for the banks in the panel. So how much do you think you're going to lose of your business in the next 10 years? Or maybe you think that the bankers are more clever than the people in the other industry?
No.
I think the question was how much market share you think you will lose in the coming years. How much market share you think you will lose in the coming years? That was the question?
Yeah.
Hello?
We hear well from the back to the top, but not from the top to the back.
The question is for the banks in the panel. Okay, so the question is, the record industry and the publishing industry, they both lost basically 50% of the revenues in a decade. So the question is how much you think that you're going to lose out of your business in the next 10 years? Or if you think that you're not going to lose any because maybe bankers are more clever than people in other industries.
I can start, yeah. I think revenues are struggling, as you said. So because the structure of the business model has been changing during the last year. So I think the only the way to keep competition will be in two ways. One will be lowering costs to keep the margin. So it means probably we'll need to rethink what we do with the installed capacity that we already have to really keep the face on the competition with the business. And on the second side, we will need to reinvent new ways of doing business on digital. So it means doing business around e-commerce and around new digital business where probably banks can take part of that business as a B2B business or this kind of thing. So it will be a combination of reducing cost and trying to find new income source with the digital opportunities that we have. And for us, for example, in this moment, e-commerce world is a strategic part of the business, and we are growing and transforming part of our results to things captured on the digital space.
Okay. Another question? I think right here. Yeah.
Hi, a lot of the mobile payment infrastructure, can you guys hear me? A lot of the mobile payment infrastructure to date has been built on card infrastructure that already exists. So Apple Pay, you still pay with a credit card. But is the real disruption in mobile payments going to come when Apple Pay moves to Bitcoins, or when they totally take cards out of the equation?
So he's saying that we've been talking about some kind of innovation, current innovation like Apple Payment, which is based on the same system as today, cards or same currency, euros. How do you think? What do you think will happen when the innovation will really be different, without cards or with other currencies? Was that more or less?
What I really think is tokenization is the future. I mean, all the payment systems that you see everywhere are based on the same PAN. The PAN is the 16 digits that you can find on any debit or credit card. So at the end, all the payment systems are built on top of a regular debit or credit card. So I think this is something that is really changing in the future. I think it's changing right now because tokenization is the future. Tokenization is something that is based on the same regular card, but these are like a dynamic number that is used on each transaction. So I think this is the future, and there are going to be many and many products based on tokenization rather than regular credit or debit cards.
In addition to that, I would like to add that yes, the card business will keep with different shapes, but will keep. But in addition to that, you can at all. Please, can I talk now? Hello?
Okay.
Yep. In addition to the cards that will be received with digital wallets and mobile devices and so on, you have, for example, stored value accounts provided by payment entities which will not be banks, and they are under the current regulation, they are authorized to offer payment services. So we will see some providers offering non-card-based payments to the general public, consumers and merchants and businesses. And also on the other way, we are seeing from the banks an initiative that is quite interesting in certain countries where instead of using cards, they are starting to provide real-time payments based on accounts. And that is going to change the market. For example, in the UK, you have the example of Payem, or they are going to launch right now SAP, and also in Sweden you have Swiss, which are peer-to-peer payments based on current accounts and processing real time. This is quite innovative, and also is the framework to develop more innovation on top of that.
Okay.
We can have just to add, and our vision is that Bitcoin is a protocol, so it's like changing the way you move money. And Bitcoin is like the email protocol for money, so you can send money everywhere with just one click. And our vision here is, again, about transforming to digital, is banks can take advantage of this new protocol. So how you can build up your peer-to-peer payments infrastructure on top of Bitcoin protocol and really being able to deliver a new way of delivering payments, or probably Ripple. Ripple is the same like Bitcoin, but really connecting banks into real-time payments. Today, if I want to make a payment to United States, it will take like 3 or 4 days to arrive there from Barcelona to San Francisco. And with Ripple, what I can do is make a real-time payment like I do with Bitcoin. So again, banks can take advantage of this infrastructure and really transform the hard processes that we have and the infrastructure that we have.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry there is no time for more questions. We have to move on. But really, we all see there is a revolution happening there in the financial industry. Competition will be very interesting. It is already interesting, but it will be even more in the future. So thank you very much for sharing your views on this, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.